Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to Spiritual Saturday Book Club. I'll be taking over from Pastor David, who has been previously sharing The Promise, which was Rinpoche's biography, with everyone. So I'm actually going to be doing a book called Gurus for Hire, Enlightenment for Sale. And this is a book actually that was based on a series of teachings that Rinpoche gave over a course of 3 days. So it was a very, very long teaching that Rinpoche gave, and that was in 2006. So let me just see who is online. So I can see people like Sukfan, David Chu's online, Mr. Lam is also online. Alice Tay is here. Good morning, Alice. Yeah, hopefully everyone can hear me. If there is any technical difficulties, please do put a comment on the page so I know that there is a problem, and we'll get that sorted out. So, where to start with this? So the way that I'm going to do these sessions is I can appreciate that not everybody will actually have a copy for Gurus for Hire, Enlightenment for Sale at home. I do apologize if you can see my book. It's a bit tattered and dog-eared because it's been used quite a bit. What I'll be doing is I'll actually be going through the book section by section, and what I'll be doing is I'll be reading it out. And after I've read it out, I'll actually be unpacking it more for everyone here, because this is one of the books that, even though it's quite thin, as you can see, it has a lot of Dharma in it, and it is written for beginners. It's written to introduce people to Dharma and Dharma concepts, which is what Rinpoche envisioned for the book itself. But it has a lot more meaning, it has a lot more depth, and hopefully I'll be able to share that with all of you through these sessions that we'll be doing for the Spiritual Saturday Book Club. And hopefully it will give you a better understanding and an overall impression of Dharma and Dharma practice. Now, I think some of you may have joined these sessions that myself and Pastor David have been doing for Easy Dharma for the New Normal on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And in those sessions, what we've actually been doing is we've actually been going into a lot of Dharma theory, in the sense that we've been giving a lot of, we've kind of been doing a lot of formal topics. Now, this is something that Rinpoche covers in this book, but one of the things that Rinpoche wanted is Rinpoche wanted a book or a teaching in which it was more applicable, how to actually apply it, and the reason behind different Buddhist practices that we do. I'm not necessarily talking about deity practices. I'm actually talking about how to live and how to go about practicing the Dharma in daily life. And specifically, this book was written about the relationship between the guru or the teacher and students, and also the center. So in what that basically means in a nutshell is Rinpoche goes into how we should act, how we should behave, how we should interact with our guru or with our Dharma brothers and sisters, or even just when we're in the center, how we should react with people, how we should interact with people. And this is more than just a formality. This is actually how we live Dharma. because we always say that we need to practice the Dharma, but practice is more than just sitting on a meditation cushion. It's also about how we interact with other people who are practicing the Dharma, who aren't practicing the Dharma. And so this is something that Rinpoche wanted every one of us to know and to be able to practice. So I hope that makes sense. Again, if there is anything that I'm talking about that isn't clear for you, please make sure you do put a comment and ask a question. And even if you have any general questions about any of the topics that we'll be covering over these sessions, please do ask. Okay, let's see who else is online. Pastor Hani is also online. Hello, Pastor Hani. And Mr. Lam is also online. Sharon Ong, Iman. So thank you all for joining. Just before we actually get into the book itself, I just want to remind everyone that these sessions are actually open for sponsorship. Any of our sessions that we are doing online on the Kechara Forest Retreat Facebook page, and also the Kechara Facebook page itself, these sessions can be sponsored, and you can sponsor by going to kechara.com/donate, or you can visit Vajra Secrets. And it basically the sponsorship basically goes towards helping us to maintain the costs of making sure that we can actually share the Dharma with everyone here. And so today's sponsor is actually Kong Iman. So thank you very much for sponsoring today's session. And there's also a dedication that may there be more unceasing true compassion and wisdom among sentient beings. And actually this dedication actually starts off our session on Gurus for Hire very well, because we'll be getting into the first part of the book, the first section of the book actually deals with motivation and why motivation is important. So the book begins with an editor's introduction and then moves on to a foreword. And this foreword is by Rinpoche. And I wanted to read it out because it is a very good overview of what we'll actually be going through during these sessions. So it's written in Rinpoche's voice. Most of this book is also written in Rinpoche's voice as well. As far as I know, no book of this nature has ever been written, but what I have to say is necessary and very applicable for all of us today. There are certain things I would like to talk about, beginning with the relationship with the Guru. This leads to many other issues, such as how to see someone as your Guru, the qualities of a Dharma student, people who promote their Gurus at the expense of other Gurus, people who go against their Gurus, Guru bashing, center bashing, sectarianism, and how to deal with all of these issues with day-to-day practical methods. Some of these topics are quite sensitive, but they need to be talked about so that they can be cleared. These are things we all think about but dare not ask or discuss for fear of offending others. These are hurdles that all Dharma centers need to overcome. Because we live with other human beings and we are always with each other, politics invariably arise due to the different dispositions that people have. Rather than always suppressing these problems or keeping quiet about them, it would be better to speak openly and create understanding so that Dharma centers everywhere can grow. We are not in places where the mass consciousness has been Buddhist in thought for a long time. Since the mass consciousness is not Buddhist in thought, it is hard for us to arrive at a Buddhist way of thinking, although we are in Buddhism. Therefore, it would be better if we talk about these issues and create this kind of consciousness, at least among ourselves, so that Dharma work and practices to benefit others will be more effective in the future. We want to be efficient and beneficial, and we want to make our Dharma centers run well. This applies to every center in the world. The only way we can do this is to understand the phenomena of Dharma centers, the functions of Dharma centers, the people who are there, and what we are supposed to do. This book has been inspired by my many, many years of being involved with Dharma centers and seeing many things that I have kept quiet about out of respect. However, I have found a way to talk about these issues without incurring negative karma, breaking samaya, or damaging anyone. My intention to speak about this is not to talk about sensitive issues and political issues. It will sound like that, but I am not speaking with a political motive. I am actually using politics to clear politics. I do not mean for these things to be sensitive. I do not mean for what I say to be a put-down, to hurt people, to criticize, or to say which culture is good or not. I am simply explaining the phenomena of Dharma centers, their difficulties, and what they go through. I hope it can provide practical information for all of us on a personal level and for our center and its growth. Tsem Rinpoche. So that was Tsem Rinpoche's foreword, to cover basically what this book is going to be about. And as Rinpoche mentioned within his foreword, some of the topics that are covered are quite sensitive. Sensitive in the meaning that sometimes when we do go to Dharma centers, when we are involved with any Dharma center, there does seem to be some sort of politics that go in. And again, this is a very controversial topic. So some people don't know how to fully explain how a Dharma center works. They don't understand it. So what happens when they go to a Dharma center? What they imagine the center to be is they imagine the center to be full of bodhisattvas. Everybody there should be practicing the Dharma, is practicing the Dharma, and is 100% perfect. Because what happens when we are looking for happiness, when we are looking for something to fulfill us, to have a sense of fulfillment within our lives, most of us come across the Dharma, and if you're listening to this, this is what you've come across. You've come across the Dharma. But when we have that, what happens is we build up certain perceptions of what people should be like. We build up certain concepts of what the Dharma is and how it should be practiced. And this obviously is formed from our understanding, or maybe we've read a little bit of the Dharma in the past, maybe we have had experiences with, Dharma practitioners in the past, and this kind of puts into our minds a certain way that we think people should act, people should behave, and people should be like. But one thing that we usually forget is that we're all in the same boat. You have issues that you have in daily life. I also have issues in daily life. We also have different problems that we all need to go through. We're all working through mental habits, negative habituation, ways of seeing things, negative ways of interacting with people, and we're all trying to find ways around that. We're trying to find ways to overcome it. But when we come to a Dharma center, and when we interact with others in the Dharma Center, especially elder students, or maybe even perhaps pastors or monks and nuns, we have a certain perception of what they should be like. And when the people that we have these perceptions about their actions and their speech do not conform to it, and when we come to a Dharma center and perhaps we don't like the way things are done because it's not the way that we would do things, it starts to create a doubt in a person's mind. And that doubt can, Rinpoche has said, ultimately lead people away from the Dharma. So what Rinpoche was actually trying to do through this book, through this teaching, is actually to help everybody understand from the Dharma angle of what it means to have a guru, to have Dharma brothers and sisters, and to be in a center. Now, when a couple of us were discussing what book we should actually do after Pastor David had finished his take on the promise. And I think for most of us who have joined here, who are online at the moment, I actually see Karen Wong's also online, and Jerry Go is here, and Pastor David is also online. We were thinking about which of the teachings that we can share with you, that we can actually talk about, that actually will be able to help you come at the Dharma and practice the Dharma in a more healthier, more wholesome way. And that is actually that teaching is actually Gurus for Hire. And the teaching can actually be considered quite controversial in some senses, because it does actually cover things that aren't usually talked about that openly within Dharma centers, especially when it comes to relationships between Dharma brothers and sisters, how we should act, how we should think about things. But this is one of the things that actually Rinpoche wanted to stress the most, which is why he actually gave an entire 3-day teaching on this, and why Rinpoche actually published this book. So that I just wanted to make that a little bit clear, why we're actually going through this teaching rather than any of the other teachings. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else online. Okay. Jacinta Go is also online. So good morning to all of you here. So now we've covered the forward. The next thing that is covered is actually motivation. And Rinpoche covers this a little bit, so I'm just going to read out this page. It's just a single page, but then I want to actually talk about and discuss motivation a little bit more. So, we should learn Dharma for the sake of practice. This is like, so if you see the page, it's got motivation and it's got a little quote there, and it says we should learn Dharma for the sake of practice. And this one sentence is actually extremely important for our Dharma practice. Usually what happens is, when people actually come to a Dharma center, you have many sorts of people, and some of these people will actually learn Dharma for the sake of intellectual learning. They're not actually learning Dharma for the sake of putting it into practice. They're learning it for intellectual purposes. And okay, some people previously in Kechara have come to the Sunday Dharma classes that we've had in Kechara House. And one of the things that we actually go through within the classes is actually a text known as the Lam Rim. Now, the Lam Rim is considered the stages on the path to enlightenment, and it actually covers the path from A to Z, all the way from the beginning all the way to the end of how to reach enlightenment. The way that we should study the Lam Rim actually is, it should actually be a manual for us to practice. It is a manual for us to improve ourselves and to actually practice the Dharma. But in some situations, what happens is, because we actually placed a lot of emphasis on the Dharma classes, which is actually something that we're supposed to be doing as a Buddhist center, is actually learning. You do get a couple of people who, kind of come to the Lam Rim classes just to learn the Lam Rim, not to practice it, just to know that they can say, on this, the Lam Rim is split into 24 days, the Lam Rim text that we use. So they kind of use it as an intellectual exercise to say that they know more about one topic or one day of the Lam Rim more than another. So it can become an intellectual exercise. Other people come to Dharma centers just to have fun, to interact with other people. Because when you are in a Dharma center, there is a very, very close sense of brotherhood or sisterhood or a family between people who are practicing. And some people just come to a Dharma center to experience that. And the list goes on. There's many other reasons that people can come to a Dharma center. But this one quote is very, very important. We should learn Dharma for the sake of practice. So learning Dharma obviously means reading. Obviously it means listening to teachings, to attending teachings, to attending classes. But the point is not to do so for the sake of just that. The point is actually to use what you learn to actually improve your life in some way. So my question is to you, to get a little bit of more interaction on our comments. For those of you who have been practicing the Dharma for a while, what have you learned in Dharma? And how have you implemented that? How have you taken that? And how have you started practicing that in daily life? Okay? So that's my question to you. And while everybody answers that, I hope people do, and I hope people think about it as well. When you go to a Dharma teaching, or you're listening to maybe one of Rinpoche's videos on YouTube, or even if you're joining these sessions, what have you learned that you have actually put into practice? So I'd like to ask all of you to give an example of something that you've learned and something that you've put into practice, and that we can maybe discuss on that a little bit. So while you type out your answers or your comments, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading the page on motivation. So in Dharma talks, or when we are receiving the Dharma, we should not be like the 3 pots. One pot faces upwards with holes, so whatever goes in just comes out. So what Rinpoche is talking about here is the 3 pots. Now this is an analogy that's used within the Lam Rim a lot, and it is to do with when we actually come to a Dharma center, we're listening to a Dharma teaching, what not to do. Okay? Basically, it is, imagine 3 pots, imagine 3 plant pots, okay? So one of them faces upward, so it will contain anything that you pour into it, but it's got holes at the bottom. So imagine a plant pot that we have at home. I'm sure you've all got plant pots like this. When you pour water into it, there's got holes at the bottom, so the water drains out. Basically, this is saying that when we're actually listening to the Dharma, we're listening to it, it goes in, but what happens is it doesn't stay in our minds. It kind of leaves our minds again. This is what it means by, this is known as the leaky pot. It's the pot with holes in it. So when you actually listen to a teaching, when you actually contemplate a teaching, the best way to benefit from it is actually to make sure that you have understood it completely, that you retain it. Now, this can be hard because sometimes we go to Dharma teachings or we're listening to Dharma teachings that are very, very complicated. Okay? It is not that you need to remember every single detail about what was said in the teaching. It's that you need to remember the most vital points of a particular teaching. So when you remember, when you listen to, when you contemplate and you remember the essential point of a particular teaching, you can use that to basically transform your life. So Rinpoche continues, we should not be like the second pot, which faces upwards but is dirty and contaminated. Whatever teachings go in are unusable because they become contaminated. So again, this is, you're using the metaphor of a pot. But the pot inside is dirty. So when you put water, say, into the pot, the water itself becomes dirty. Okay? What this is actually saying is, when we listen to the teachings, we should actually be, and learning the teachings, we should actually do it without our preconceived notions of how things should be. Okay? So, for example, say you're learning about compassion, and the person is teaching you about how to be compassionate, and they're teaching you, you know, you should always make sure people have clothing, people have food, people have medicine to live, to survive, to be free of their suffering. So you're listening to that teaching, and it goes in, and you think, okay, yeah, okay, I'm going to do my best to make sure that people have things they need to be, to not suffer anymore. But I'm only going to do it if somebody does it for me. That part of it is contaminated. I'm only going to do it if somebody does it for me. Okay, so you've taken a teaching, it's gone in, but you have already contaminated the teaching. You've made it dirty because, again, in this case, it's about you. If I get something, then I'm going to be the most generous person. If people are generous to me, I'm going to be generous to other people. So that is basically what the dirty pot or the contaminated pot is. And Rinpoche also says, and do not be like the third pot which faces downwards. It is like a closed mindedness. So whatever teachings come to us, dribble away to the side. So imagine pouring water on a pot, but this pot is upside down. The water is just going to, fall off the pot. It's not going to go in whatsoever. And this is basically saying to you, or teaching us, that when we actually learn the Dharma, when we listen to it, we need to have an open mind. We need to listen and contemplate on what is being said, because the teachings are actually what can actually help us. And we all need help in some form or another. Okay? So I'm going to continue. When listening to the Dharma teachings, we should have good motivation, stay alert, be awake and focus. We are listening to our teachers repeat what Lord Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Our teachers are not motivated by money, fame, or reputation, and definitely not to receive anything from the students. Our teachers are motivated purely by transferring knowledge from a vase to a pot, from one container to another. If we make the time to come to teachings but fall asleep once we are there, what is the point of all the effort that we make before the teachings? We did not make all that effort to come to the teachings to have a good nap. Alertness is very important. We should listen to the teachings as personal advice, not as entertainment, not as anything for fun, not as something that is just for intellectual absorption of information. If we listen for intellectual satisfaction, that it remains as that. And intellectual satisfaction does not match spiritual progress. Intellect and practice and transformation are related, but not the same. We should listen with concentration, with focus, without distraction. We should learn it for the sake of practice, absorb it, and also have a lot of compassion. We should listen and go over the teachings again and again, so we may share them with others. The center does not grow by the Guru teaching every single person who walks in. The students have a greater responsibility to share the Guru's teachings with others. This is achieved by listening, contemplating, practicing, and then sharing with others. So actually Rinpoche, just in this page on motivation, Rinpoche's actually covered quite a bit about what it means to actually come to a Dharma center and to receive teachings. So the first is that when we're actually listening to the Dharma, when we are either go to a Dharma center or even actually all of you right now are listening to the Dharma, okay? This Dharma doesn't actually come from me, this Dharma comes from Rinpoche, okay? Because it's all in his book, it's all in his teachings. When we're listening to the Dharma, what we should always be focused. We should have an awareness. We should remember the teachings. Now for us, it's easier for us to forget the teachings or not contemplate or not listen properly. And the reason is because we actually have it in books which are easily accessible. You're listening to it online now. So usually we don't actually put that much importance on remembering the Dharma. But if you went back thousands of years, they didn't have all of this. All of the Dharma was actually taught from teacher to student or discussed between students, and you'd have to remember everything. In fact, within the Tibetan tradition, even still in the monasteries today, one of the major points is actually memorization. Now, even from a young age, if you enter the monastery as a young child, one of the things that you do is actually you go in and you have to memorize entire passages or entire texts of the Dharma. And then after you have memorized it, that's when you actually start to learn it. But obviously we're not in that situation we're in quite a modern situation. We're in a situation where we have access to books, we have access to Facebook, where a lot of us have been doing live streamings. We have access to the blog, which Rinpoche put his heart and soul into the blog, into making sure that it had all of his knowledge contained within it. So tsemrinpoche.com. So we can go there and we can learn. But we should always have the motivation to come away from our particular reading, our particular listening of the Dharma with something. Now, I don't know how many people of you have been doing this while you've been watching these live streamings. Maybe you've just been watching this for to gain a little bit more understanding of what the Dharma is. But I think what everyone should do, especially if you're listening here, and I know that a lot of you have been, I've seen a lot of you are quite regular. What you should do at the end of every live streaming session or that you watch, or maybe at the end of every YouTube video of Rinpoche that you watch, or maybe at the end of reading an article on tsemrinpoche.com, what you should actually do is you should actually write down the main teaching that you got from it, the important thing. And when you do that, you're actually able to internalize a teaching better. Okay, so that's a little tip. That's actually something that we would do, or that I do personally, especially after I've read a teaching or watched the teaching, or even when Rinpoche was when Rinpoche was here, when he was with us, and we had the fortune to have a little Dharma talk or a little Dharma sharing. As soon as I was, free from, having to go about doing things for the Dharma, or, just having to do things in daily life, when I had a little bit of free time, I would always write down what Rinpoche said, or what I'd learned. Or it didn't have to be long. It's not like you're writing down an entire essay worth of what you learned. It is just like a couple of sentences. And what I used to do is I used to keep that in I still do actually. I keep it in like a journal, in a notebook. And every now and then when I have the time, I actually go through and read that notebook to remember what I had learn. And when you do that, you actually find that you actually retain it. Because the thing is about knowledge and about learning, it can go in, but the best way to actually remember it and the best way to practice it in daily life is for you to express it. And one of those ways of expressing it is through writing it down. Another way of expressing it can be discussing it with a Dharma brother and sister. When you express it, you actually find that the teachings actually go in deeper, and you actually start a real transformation, which is obviously very beneficial. Okay? One other thing that Rinpoche says is make sure you don't fall asleep. Now this is something that happens, you'll be surprised, it happens a lot. I'm sure some of you, even watching this, may be a bit sleepy listening to my voice, because today it's a bit low. And when you go to teachings, some people fall asleep. In physical teachings, some people start to fall asleep. So the motivation here is important, because you need to be awake, you need to be alert. And again, Rinpoche talked about the intellectual, not just coming to learn the Dharma for intellectual purposes, to make sure that you put into practice what you learn. And the last point that Rinpoche mentioned within the motivation is that it applies a lot to us at the moment. Now, unfortunately for us, Rinpoche passed into parinirvana last year. So a lot of people who come to Kechara, whether it is new students, whether it is students who have been around for a while, they're kind of the impression that why, the Guru's not here anymore, so perhaps I will go to a different Guru, or perhaps I will not come to pujas anymore, or not do anything related to Kechara simply because Rinpoche is not around. Actually, this very last paragraph in the motivation, which is the first page in this book, actually addresses this. And this is that the Guru's obligation, is not to give a personal teaching to every single person who walks through the doors. And a lot of people, you'll ask why. I come to the Dharma, I need Dharma that is going to be able to transform me. I need Dharma that is going to be able to help me in some way. But the thing that you forget is every single teaching that Rinpoche ever gave is a personal teaching. It is to you. It is a teaching for you. And Rinpoche has given hundreds and hundreds of hours of video teachings. He's given thousands of hours of writing on the blog, of making sure that all of his teachings are here for us when he wasn't around. Rinpoche always said, TsemRinpoche.com is supposed to be a temple. It is a virtual temple. So when people go there, when they go to a virtual Dharma center, everything is there for them, for you, for us, so that we can learn from it, so that we can benefit ourselves and the people around us in some way or another. But it is more than just that. You see that once we have benefited from Rinpoche's teachings, the Buddha's teachings, whether that is from us becoming a more compassionate person, or perhaps we have had, we know the benefits of puja because we have done pujas ourselves and we see the effect that it's had on our lives. Maybe we have a daily sadhana practice and we see how that has affected us, how that has actually changed us to be a more positive person. Maybe you have a daily meditation practice that you've been doing every day, breathing meditation, and you've seen your mind calm down in some way or another. These are all ways that we have benefited from the teachings. And it's actually up to us to share that with other people. Okay? I don't mean share it in the sense of, you become fanatic and you go out and you try to convert people to Buddhism. That is not the Buddhist way. In fact, the Buddha always said, do not actively convert people. Okay? The way that we share the Dharma with people, and this is a question that the pastors actually get asked quite a lot. My friends and my family don't want to come to Kechara. They don't want to. I have benefited from coming to puja. I have benefited from listening to Rinpoche and changing my life. But my friends and family don't want to do it. What can I do to help, to make them come to Kechara? Is there a mantra I can recite? If I recite the mantra and blow on them, maybe their minds will change and they'll come to Kechara. This doesn't exist. This isn't the way of bringing people to the Dharma. Because I've seen that most people that are listening to, that are online at the moment, are actually have either been practicing or know a little bit of Dharma. Okay? The way to share Dharma with others is actually to transform yourself. When you become a better person, and people around you see that change and feel that change in you, that is how people gain confidence in the Dharma. And that is how people will know and will understand that the Dharma can actually help them through whatever problems that they're going through as well, because they see the change in you. So if you have to be very honest with yourself, if you don't see a change in yourself for the positive, that means that even though you have been coming, you have been listening to Dharma teachings, it probably means you haven't actually affected any change, real change in your life. And if you haven't done that, then you have to really sit down and analyze why that change hasn't occurred in you. Because a lot of people ask, you talk about compassion. I've been talking about the 6 perfections in my evening live streams. Pastor David is talking about the wheel of sharp weapons. You're going through all of this and you're learning it, okay? But you don't put it into practice. And then you kind of think, well, I've been telling my friends and my family about the 6 perfections and about the wheel of sharp weapons and, what it means. But, they're not interested. And the reason they're not interested is because you haven't put that change into practice in your own life. Buddhism, the teachings, what Rinpoche taught, what the Buddha taught, is all about change. It is about transformation. So if you're not seeing that transformation, if people around you are not seeing that transformation, then you really need to sit down and to analyze what you're doing. because you'll be doing one of the three pots. You'll either be the pot that's leaky, where the teachings don't stay in. You're going to be the pot that's dirty. You learn something, but your preconceptions and your notions of what you should be doing, of how you should be practicing, is clouding your transformation. Or you're like the upside down pot. The teachings aren't going in whatsoever. So this is what all of the texts, especially the Lam Rim texts, tell us we should avoid when we're practicing the Dharma. Okay? That was my very big speech on motivation, which isn't finished yet, because I have a little bit more to say. So I'm gonna, okay, so I asked a couple of people to write down what we were, to comment. And there's a comment by Sharon. I initially joined KH, which is Kechara House, to attend Dharma classes. I was a Wesak Day Buddhist who knew nothing about Buddhism. It was initially more for intellectual purposes. Yeah, a lot of people go through that actually. You see, we live in a country, Malaysia, or even other parts of Asia, where we are culturally Buddhist, or even just culturally religious, in that religion has been passed down, or faith has been passed down from our families, and we usually just go to the temple. I know a lot of people that just go to the temple once a year, 2-3 times a year, make their prayers, and that's it. And then they start getting interested in it because, you know, they call themselves Buddhist, but they don't actually know anything about Buddhism. So they come into a Dharma center just to kind of find out what Buddhism is all about. And it's an intellectual pursuit. That's perfect for actually getting you into learning more about Buddhism. But when you start after you've gone through it and you've learned a little bit of it, even just for intellectual purposes, you should actually try to change it to be more of a transformational purpose rather than an intellectual purpose. And I remember Sharon coming to KH Dharma classes because actually me and Sharon Ong, we joined Kechara at the same time. And I remember very well seeing Sharon and her kids coming to Dharma classes every Sunday. There's another comment from Jacinta. For me, although we are supposed to take all those teachings or advices as instruction, but I think we have to be practical at time. At first, when I practiced Buddhism, I do not have any single offerings or even a statue. Fortunately, I have one mala. From chanting, I was gifted a statue, and slowly I put small glasses as offerings. Looking back now, I'm impressed with it, although it's far from perfect. Some instructions we can immediately adopt and practice, such as reducing anger and laziness. From being a monster mum for 10 times, I managed to reduce it to 5 or less. From practicing only Lama Tsongkhapa sadhana, I have included white Tara as daily practice and then slowly protector practice. There are many ways for us to do, although to be honest, I can't follow it all, but at least I try. Actually, Jacinta, what you have done and what you have put as your comment and the story that you've told us about how that you have come to slowly practice the Dharma is actually the right way. A lot of us, sometimes when we're listening to the Dharma, we think that this transformation has to be immediate. We think that, you know, you've listened to this Dharma teaching, this teaching on compassion or lessening your anger has gone in, and you've heard it, and you have to immediately practice it. And if you don't immediately practice it, then there's something wrong with you. Actually, it's not a correct way of thinking. What you have done, what you have gone through, Jacinta, and what a lot of us have gone through is actually the perfect way of practicing. It means you are practicing. It means you are practicing, because practice is progress and it's a process. It is not immediate. This is one thing a lot of people forget, especially when they come to Dharma centers and everything. They immediately want a cure for their problems, whatever that may be. They immediately want to be able to practice, the highest teachings. They immediately want everything to be perfect. They immediately want to be bodhisattvas. This isn't the case. Buddhism is actually about knowing yourself. It is about knowing yourself and transforming yourself. And the truth of the matter, the truth of the matter is, most of us don't actually know ourselves. We don't know how our minds work because we let it rule ourselves so much. We let our emotions and our feelings rule ourselves so much that we don't actually look at it. We don't actually look at it and understand how we interact with the world and the consequences of that. And this is what Buddhism teaches. So Jacinta, what you have written is perfect. It is a process. But now that you have reached that stage of Dharma practice where you are, don't let that state be stagnant. Okay? Now, obviously, I can tell from your comment, you have an altar. You're doing a daily sadhana practice. Okay? Perfect. Now you are, just by doing that, you are purifying negative karma and you're generating merit. Now, Jacinta, go one step further. You've said that you've lessoned being a monster mum. Okay? All right? Perfect. Now become the angel mum. Become the mum that your kids look up to. Not just for, physical needs of taking after them, looking after them, things like that. But become the mum that your kids look up to for things like emotional support, for things like life advice. And all of that is possible through the practice of the Dharma. So take your Dharma practice one step further. And by taking your Dharma practice one step further, I don't mean do more sadhana. I don't mean do 10 malas of Migsema mantra. I'm actually talking about take time to understand how your mind works. Take time to put into practice positive qualities. Okay? When you do that, your transformation will skyrocket, and you will see things improve dramatically in your life and your interaction with the people around you. Okay. We've also got a comment from Sukfan. Pastor Niral, just now you asked what we've learned so far from Rinpoche's teaching. For me, it's learning to let go of things I can't control. But I don't think I progressed much, though still a long way to go. Actually, Sukfan, you've brought up a very, very important issue. And that is to let go. All of us have problems letting go, whether it is in any sense of the word, in any sense of the phrase. Okay, some of us may be in relationships, and when those relationships ends, we have trouble letting go of that person. We can be in a work situation where somebody says something to you in the wrong way and you get defensive and then you can't let it go. For the next however long, you're always going to remember that person said that thing to me in a really bad way. I just can't let it go. So from now on, I'm not going to talk to that person. I'm not going to interact with that person. I don't like that person. That's another way that people don't let it go. Talking about work situations, we always have a competitive streak. a lot of people always, think about, oh, he finished that report earlier, or he did more sales than me. Oh no, you know what? The report wasn't even that good. I'm going to make a comment. I'm just going to walk past the person and make a comment. Oh, your report, the figures weren't right. Or, yeah, you managed to do a lot of sales this month. Good for you, but next month, who knows? It's not going to be that great for you. Okay, there's another way you can't let it go. And it's even within the Dharma, you see a person and for some reason, they talk about, oh, I finished a Tsongkhapa retreat. So all of a sudden, you need to do a Tsongkhapa retreat because you can't get over it. You need to do, a Manjushri retreat more because you can't let go of the fact that this person actually did Dharma, did a little bit of Dharma. So you have to do a Tsongkhapa retreat as well. You have to do a Manjushri retreat as well. You have to recite 15 malas of Miksama a day because somebody recites 10 malas of Miksama a day. You see, letting it go is more than just for the secular world. It is also for the Dharma world. It's actually for everything until you reach enlightenment. Letting it go. Okay? Every single one of us has difficulties in letting it go. There are many ways that Buddhism teaches us to actually be able to let go. Okay, one is just to force yourself to keep trying to let go of something. Another way that is actually beneficial is actually contemplation on impermanence. When you contemplate on impermanence of a situation, impermanence of people, sorry, but one day we are going to die, impermanence of objects, you're actually able to let things go. You let things go because wouldn't you actually want to spend your life to be more meaningful, to actually be happy instead of having this angst in your mind not to be able to let something go? So meditation or contemplation on impermanence is very important. Especially when we want to transform ourselves, we need to meditate and contemplate on impermanence. As a comment from Jacinta, okay, Pastor, I will watch my mind, and yes, I do hope to become an example and emotional support for my kids. A very, very good motivation to have. Very, very, very good. And Jacinta, once you get it, and once you do become that emotional support and that person that your kids can rely on, extend it to everyone else. Extend it to the rest of your family. Extend it to your friends. That is what it means to be a Buddhist, to be practicing Buddhism. Okay. Now, actually, what I'm going to do is, I've finished reading out and explaining motivation. But here I wanted to take this a little deeper when it comes to motivation. And what I wanted to link it to is I wanted to link it to action. And it reminds me of, there's a famous quote that you'll see all over the internet where the Buddha says, everything arises from the mind. Okay? Or everything that happens from the mind. And the Buddha is 100% correct. Excuse me. This book, any book, first comes about from where? It comes about from a thought. It comes about from an idea somebody had. This laptop that I'm using at the moment comes about from a thought that somebody had. This table, the way it's made, the way it looks, how many legs it has, what its function is, all comes about from the mind. Somebody had an idea, somebody had a thought. Okay? When you wake up in the morning, what you do, all the actions that you take come from the mind. So the mind is extremely, extremely important. So when you have a motivation to do something, when you have an idea, when you have the intention of doing something, it is very, very, very important. And I want to link this also to the law of karma. Now, we'll be getting into it later on in the books, in the sessions that I'm going to share with you. But I know a lot of people here have also been watching the evening sessions that I've been doing with Pastor David, and we all know that one of the things I love to talk about in that is karma. Now, karma, the first section or the first part of any karma is motivation. It is intention. Okay? And it's actually the biggest part of it. So even though we're talking about Dharma practice and, motivation for learning, things like that, it is extremely important to have good motivation and a good intention for anything that we do in life. A lot of kind of these, self-help meditation gurus and people like that these days always talk about having a positive intention. What is an intention? An intention is literally a motivation. It is literally thinking of doing something good or thinking of doing good. And this is very important. Now, before we do anything in Buddhism, especially when we're doing things like pujas, when we're doing things like sadhanas, when we're doing meditation, or even just daily life, or even just, Dharma work, volunteer work, we always say, set a good motivation. Okay? And a lot of us make a distinction between that and what the self-help world says about setting your intention, setting your motivation. They're one and the same thing, because it has to do with the mind and how important the mind is. Okay? Now, I'm going to go a little bit more deeper with that, which is the mind. There are many ways in which Buddhism goes into the topic of the mind a lot, and it goes into very, very detailed explanation of how the mind works. Generally speaking, we have 3 mindsets, as it were. And these mindsets actually determine our actions. Okay? Now, so when we've been discussing karma in the past, and I know most of you, all of you listening, know about karma. There are 3 types of karma. You've got your negative karma, your neutral karma, and your positive karma. So there's these 3 types of karma, or 3 types of action that you can do, and 3 types of results that you can get from those actions. But what determines that is actually your mind. If you are in a positive frame of mind, you are going to be doing positive things. Okay, you're going to do something positive. If you're in a neutral frame of mind, you're just going to go about life doing things in a neutral manner. And if you're in a negative mind frame, you're going to be doing something negative. Okay? So what is motivation? Motivation is actually switching your mind from either negative or neutral, okay, to something positive. And when you switch your mindset from something negative or neutral to something positive, anything you do following that will be extremely beneficial. For example, one of the reasons when we begin a puja, we begin with a motivation, we do the puja, and we end with the dedication. And through the process of that, we actually generate merit. Now, the motivation at the beginning, okay, the mechanism in which the action, the puja, becomes a merit-making activity is because of the motivation at the beginning. because you're switching your mind from either negative or neutral into something positive. That is the mechanism which changes any situation and allows you to make it into something positive, and when you're practicing Buddhism, to make it into something merit-making, merit-generating. So motivation is very, very important. If anybody has any questions or needs any clarification about any of that, please do ask and do comment. Actually, throughout these sessions, even though I'm going to be talking about certain topics following the book, even if you have any general Dharma questions, please do ask, because I will bet you 100% that any Dharma question you have will fall into this book. Okay? There will be some part of this book that will be able to answer your Dharma question that you have. So that is motivation. A lot of you are wondering why I spent such a long time going, which is most of the first session of this book, going over the motivation. Now, it's very important. Motivation is crucial, as I've been talking about. So if you are planning on joining the rest of, subsequent sessions of Spiritual Saturday Book Club, please do set a strong motivation today. Set a strong motivation that you will actually, as we are discussing it and we are talking about it, that you'll be able to absorb a lot of what I'm going to share with you, which is all from Rinpoche, and you'll be able to actually take your Dharma practice to the next level. To actually be able to transform your mind, to be able to transform your relationship with your Guru, to transform your relationship with your Dharma brothers and sisters, and to transform your relationship with Kechara as your Dharma center. Okay? After the motivation in the book, Rinpoche actually explains the Guru Yoga a little bit, the meaning of it, and it is actually the prayer is included within the book. So what I'm going to actually do before we actually finish this first session of Gurus for Hire is that I want to go over that, and for auspicious reasons I will actually read through the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa, just to make things a little bit more auspicious for everyone. Okay? So this is Rinpoche's little explanation on Guru Yoga. It is very auspicious to start teachings or special events by reciting Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga. I learned this from the great Mahasiddha Geshe Tsultrim Gyaltsen in America, who has passed away. Geshe Tsultrim Gyaltsen was the resident teacher at Thubten Dagyeling in Los Angeles, and was Tsem Rinpoche's second guru. Okay? Sometimes Geshe-la and I would go for big interfaith Buddhist gatherings back in Los Angeles with Buddhists from all countries, sects and backgrounds. Once Geshe-la went to one of these gatherings with 3 or 4 of us from the center. Before the meeting started, each tradition or country did a beautiful special chant. Some were quite ritualized, some recited their prayers with bells and staccato rhythms. Then it came to the Tibetan tradition. Geshe-la represented the whole Tibetan tradition, and I thought it was now our time to show off, since Tibetans are known for their long rituals. I wondered what Geshe-la was going to do. Maybe some Yamantaka prayers. Maybe he would chant and impress them with his memory, his mudras, his recitation, his great chanting. I waited. Geshe-la folded his hands in front of everybody and recited Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga without any melodious chanting. When he got to the Migtsama, he chanted it very slowly. he finished with a dissolution. It only took him about 10 minutes. When we left the gathering, I asked Kechara, "Those people did all that fancy chanting and stuff. Why did you just do Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga?" He looked at me and he said, "Just?" He explained that the 84,000 teachings of Lord Buddha are planted in the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa. If you are a master, you will be able to explain all of Buddha's teachings completely from each line of Lama Tsongkhapa's praise. He said that to recite that simply from the heart and purely would plant seeds of enlightenment in everybody's mind and bless everybody in the congregation. What practice is more superior to that? I shut up real fast. Here was a grand Dharma master who was already in his 70s with a PhD in Buddhist studies, a Geshe Laram of Ganden Shatse, who knew the rituals of Sutra and Tantra inside out, who had made long life offerings, or who had everything memorized, who could stand in front of the Dalai Lama and make long life offerings or recite long verses from memory. Even grand masters of our monastery prostrate to him when they see him. And he told me that the most complete practice is that of Lama Tsongkhapa. Before starting Dharma teachings, he would do Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga, a mandala offering, the short form of Heart Sutra, and a few minutes of meditation on motivation. When I heard that, it made a huge impact on my life. So I have followed this tradition of reciting Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga before anything, for anything. I would advise everybody to memorize Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga in English or Tibetan and recite it. The minute you get up in the morning, before you start making calls, scream for tea, or think about work, recite Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga. Start your day with the Buddha. After you have completed the prayers, think that your mind is clear and bright, your body is clear, and your temporary obstacles are removed. You feel very happy, you feel very light. You should think that very strongly and affirm this again and again. All arises from the mind. Then you can continue with your work for the rest of the day. When we do Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga with awareness, concentration, confidence, faith, and visualization that I have described below, we open a doorway that connects us with a real enlightened being who abides in and comes from compassion, skillful means, and omniscient wisdom. It is a real existent Buddha. Secondly, by invoking such a being with those qualities, we open up the same potential within ourselves. When we invoke that being, we are invoking the same being within ourselves to overcome our problems and to come out by their blessings. We all have the seed of Buddhahood that needs to be cultivated. Seed means potential. It does not mean it is there, latent or dormant. It means the potential is there. When we invoke Lama Tsongkhapa, it is a twofold prayer. First, we invoke the blessings of the outer Lama Tsongkhapa, who is a real enlightened being. Secondly, the prayers are an environmental factor for us to open up the Lama Tsongkhapa within ourselves. When we create that environment with retreats and meditations, dedications, offerings, practice of the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections, and an association with Lama Tsongkhapa, we will open up the Lama Tsongkhapa within us, stage by stage. We will see ourselves open up, becoming less miserly, more generous. We will see our skills and speech grow. We will see our ability to accept and forgive increase. Remember, we're talking about letting go. So this is also another way that we can let go, is practice Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga properly. All these qualities embodied by the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections, will increase and grow. Independence on our practice of Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga. Guru Yoga means the yoga that finds one's Guru. We call it the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa because when we submit to an outer Guru, such as Lama Tsongkhapa, we find our inner Guru, okay, which is our own Buddha potential. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa, and that will actually I'll conclude today's session, okay? And at the end of that, there is a dissolution which you can, I will take as a dedication for today's session as well. So before I do that, Mr. Lam has a comment. The most impactful learning from Rinpoche for me is to focus on others more. And that is the perfect teaching. That is one of the key teachings that Rinpoche gave, which is that when we actually focus on other people rather than ourselves, actually automatically, after you have learned things like the 6 perfections, or things like being a more compassionate person, being a more wiser person, one of the mechanisms to affect that change within our life is actually when you focus out on others. When you focus out on others, what happens is you remember all these things and you can actually put them into practice. And when you put them into practice, that is when the transformation occurs. Okay? So I'm going to read out Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga. I'm going to do it in English, so you can actually listen to the words and the meanings. My Lord Guru comes from Tushita heaven, emanating forth from Maitreya's heart, and he is assembled before me with his 2 spiritual sons, Kedrup Rinpoche and Gyaltsab Rinpoche. Please come to this place at this time. My beautiful Guru smiles with great delight. He sits before me upon a lion throne with a lotus and moon seat. I request you to remain for 100 eons in order to spread the teachings and the supreme merit field for my mind's faith. Your mind has the intellect to comprehend all to the full extent to be known. You are omniscient. Your speech with its excellent explanation becomes the ear ornament of those with good fortune. Your body is radiant, handsome, with glory and renown. I prostrate to you, Lama Tsongkhapa, who to behold, to hear, or to recall is worthwhile. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, fragrant incense, light and scented water, an ocean of actual and visualized cloud of offerings, I present to you, O great field of merit, Lama Tsongkhapa. Whatever negativities I have committed with my body, my speech, and my mind, that I have accumulated for many lifetimes, and any transgressions of my vows, I confess to you, Lama Tsongkhapa, a fully enlightened being. Please forgive me, and may I purify my negative actions. From my heart, great Lama Tsongkhapa, by reading your biographies and listening to your deeds, I rejoice in the waves and oceans of your great merits and the great actions that you committed in this life. You strove to learn and practice in this degenerate age and made life meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly dharmas. Great Lama, without you, dharma is not possible. Attainments are not possible. From the void of the Dharmakaya, sky-like wisdom, please rain down a vast Dharma and train me according to my needs. My root Guru, all the great Gurus and teachers in the world, I request you again, through Lama Tsongkhapa, please stay and remain until samsara ends. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings to grow, for all sentient beings to receive it, and in particular for the essence teachings of the Venerable Losandrapa, Lama Tsongkhapa, to shine forever. By directing to the field of the Buddhas this mandala, a base resplendent with flowers, saffron, water, incense, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and moon, may all sentient beings be led to the holy fields of Buddhas. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nirayatayami. I'm going to recite Migsama 3 times. Migme Tsawe Techen Chanezi, Jimmy Kempe, Wampo Jampai, Dupo Malo, Jomse Samweda, Ganjin Gapin Sugin Songaba, Los Santa Beshabla Sawad, Mime Tsawe Techen Chanezi, Jimmy Kempe, Wampo Jampai, Dupo Malo, Jomse Samwed, Ganjin Gapin Sugin Songaba, Los Santa Beshabla Sawad, Mime Tsawe Techen Chanezi, Jimmy Kempe, Wampo Jampai, Dupo Malo, Jomse Samwed, Ganjin Gapin Sugin Songaba, Los Santa Beshabla Sawad. Lama Tsongkhapa's 2 sons dissolve into Lama Tsongkhapa. They become one. Lama Tsongkhapa's throne, his lotus and moon disk, all made of light, all dissolve inside Lama Tsongkhapa. Then Lama Tsongkhapa, for the benefit of ourselves and our perception, shrinks to the size of a thumb and turns around to face the direction we face. He lands on top of our head very gently with a smile. Lama Tsongkhapa is a fully enlightened being, very happy and very gently dissolves through our central channel. He enters the lotus at our hearts and lotus closes, symbolizing he has become one with our minds. The lotus is our minds full of light, bright and clear. Lama Tsongkhapa and us become one. He stays with us until the end of time. In this life and future lives, we will meet Lama Tsongkhapa again and again, and teachers of this tradition and the teachers of Lama Tsongkhapa to receive Dharma teachings. Now, what I've just recited isn't the usual translation of a lot of Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga that we usually use. This one is actually also intertwined with a commentary to it. So you would have heard that it was slightly longer, but it covers the meaning and the essence of all of the verses, plus a commentary to it as well. And that is included in the book Gurus for Hire. So, thank you very much everyone for joining today's session. I will end it there. And not get into the other topics, which we will start off with the importance of the Guru and what the Guru means next week. So thank you everyone for joining, and have a good afternoon. And please do join Wai Ying for her session, which will be next. Thank you very much for joining.